particular day. They weren't very complimentary, of course. By 1910, the Gillette Company dominated the razor business, and Gillette became a millionaire. He was a member of Adelphoi Lodge in Quincy, Massachusetts. And of course, next we can find Sebastian Kresge, SS Kresge, the founder of Kmart. And there was also Roland H. Macy, the founder of Macy's. And of course, we can't forget one of the competition, which is James C. Penney, the founder of the J.C. Penney stores. And sometimes we should not forget the Colonel himself, Colonel Harlan Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Where would we be without chicken? And of course, there was Leland Stanford, railroad tycoon, and the namesake of Stanford University. And while we're talking about fried chicken, we also should mention Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's restaurants.
Paul, that's quite a long list. There are many musicians and entertainers that have enjoyed the benefits of Freemasonry. Could you talk a little about them?
Yeah, I think I could. They include Roy Acuff, the king of country western music, Louis Armstrong, jazz legend, William Count Basie, orchestra leader and composer, Johann Sebastian Bach, Irving Berlin, Roy Clark again as a music legend, Nat King Cole, Irving Berlin, Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington, the jazz musician, and one of my favorites, Lionel Hampton, a jazz musician. There was Franz Joseph Haydn, Franz Liszt, Leopold Mozart, Wolfgang Amedeus Mozart's father, and of course, we all know Mozart. He was a child prodigy. He was only 6 when he began creating what amounted to more than 600 works during his lifetime, including several Masonic pieces. The Austrian child prodigy inherited his father's flair for music composition. He was initiated into a lodge in Austria in 1784, and he composed many Masonic works, including the opening ode, the closing ode, and the Masonic funeral music, the Magic Flute Opera, and more. He convinced his father to join the fraternity, and when his father received his 2nd degree, Wolfgang wrote the Fellowcraft's Journey to honor this occasion. His last Masonic work was written for the dedication of a Masonic temple in Vienna in 1791. And there was John Sibelius, Finnish composer. John Stafford Smith, the composer of the tune now used for the Star-Spangled Banner. How about John Philip Sousa, the March King? And Sir Arthur Sullivan, part of the famous duo of Gilbert and Sullivan. Giuseppe Verdi, the operatic composer, and Aida.
There were many entertainers of the stage and screen who are also brothers. I understand that you had a meeting with Ernest Borgnine?
Yes, we did, but I'll get to him in a moment. The interesting part of it is, let me give you a partial listing of some of the entertainers, and this is only a partial list. First of all, let's include William Bud Abbott, of the famous Bud Abbott and Lou Costello routine. Those were my favorite movies in the 40s and 50s. And of course, Bud Abbott was basically a Mason and a Shriner. And he began his career, believe it or not, as a cashier in the theater in 1916 and became famous for the founding of the comedy team. Anybody must remember who's on first, what's on second. He and Lou Costello sold $76 million in war bonds on a 31-day tour during World War II. And they both entertained in 300 Army and Navy camps. Tremendous, tremendous patriot. And of course, we can go on a little further. Who can forget the voice of Bugs Bunny and others, which is Mel Blanc. okay? And of course we can't, besides Mel Blanc, we can't forget Walt Disney and Oliver Hardy. And of course we also know about the next one, which is Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini began his performing magic at the age of 16 under the name Eric the Great. He later changed the name from Eric Weiss to Houdini, hoping to become like his mentor, the internationally famous magician Robert Houdin. In 1916, Houdini began a career in films and is best known for his great escapes. He executed the largest illusion to this day, making an elephant disappear. Houdini was a member of St. Cecil Lodge 568 in New York City. And of course, my favorite, everybody knows Ernest Borgnine, basically because of maybe McHale's Navy. And believe it or not, he's so genuine, you would almost think that McHale's Navy parts were basically natural for him. He was a screen and stage actor who in 1956 won an Oscar in his performance of the movie Marty. Borgnine served 10 years in the U.S. Navy during World War II, which probably gave him a lot of experience with McHale's Navy as playing those parts, but he studied acting under the GI Bill. He hit legitimate screen in the Barter Theater in Virginia and later in New York. He also played the lead in Born Yesterday, and that led him to Broadway to play with Helen Hayes in Mrs. McThing. He has also done some 200 radio and movie shows. In Hollywood, he got his big break when he was cast in the movie From Here to Eternity opposite Frank Sinatra, Deborah Kerr, and Burt Lancaster. He's a member of Abingdon Lodge in Virginia, number 48, and the Scottish Rite Valley of Los Angeles in California. He also received his 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Masonry from the Southern Jurisdiction in 1983. And of course we have Clark Gable. We can't forget Clark Gable and Gone with the Wind and so many of those good movies. And Al Jolson. And again, how about Roy Rogers? Roy Rogers left home for California in a pickup truck with his father, hoping to seek fortune and fame. His film debut was Under the Western Stars, and Rogers soon became a movie, television, and radio star, riding onto the sets and into the hearts of many grown-ups and children, like me at that time, with his golden Charger Trigger. He was a member of the Hollywood Lodge 355, and belonged to the Scottish Rite Valley in Los Angeles, and was a member of the Al-Makalla Shrine Temple. You should also not forget maybe a famous one, which was Red Skelton. And while we all remember him for his shows as clowns, we also should understand that he wrote a very living understanding in one of his shows on the explanation of the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. He was a natural clown, and I think anybody that remembers his TV programs would also remember him as such, ad-libbing all the way. And also, what people don't know is that he is a famous painter of clowns. Lastly, I'd like to bring to mind Danny Thomas, who was the founder of the St. Jude's Hospitals for Children. Quite an accomplishment from a Freemason.
Many of today's sports stars and sports stars in the past have been members of our fraternity. The list includes William Jack Dempsey, boxer, Russell Ross Francis, New England Patriot and San Francisco 49er, John Hanna, famous lineman from the New England Patriots, Sam Hornish, auto racer, and winner of the Indianapolis 500, Tim Horton, ice hockey player, and founder of the national chain of donut shops.
Yep.
Boxer Joe Louis was among them, and James Naismith, inventor of U.S. basketball. My personal favorite, Arnold Palmer, golfer,
Of course. He was born in 1929, and Arnold Palmer is many things to many people, some of which is the world-famous golfer. He was a business executive, advertising spokesman, and one of the most popular and accessible public figures in the history of the game. He was recognized when a National Associated Press poll named him Athlete of the Decade in the 1960s. He amassed 92 championships in national and international professional competitions, and by the end of 1994, 61 of those victories came on the U.S. PGA Open Tour, starting in 1955 with the Canadian Open. He was a member of Loyola Lodge 275 in Latrobe, Pennsylvania, and belongs to the Scottish Rite Valley of Pittsburgh. And he also received the 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Masonry in 1998.
Sugar Ray Robinson was also a championship boxer. John Honus Wagner, baseball legend. And Glen Scobey, Pop Warner, football coach.
Ah, yes. Again, a favorite of many teenagers and young men aspiring to play football. This famous football coach earned the name when enrolled in Cornell University in 1892, when his younger team and classmates called him Pop. He graduated with a law degree in 1894, but established himself as one of the greatest architects in the game of football. He coached at the University of Georgia, Cornell University, Carlisle, Pennsylvania Indian School, University of Pittsburgh, Stanford University, and Temple University. And during his 46 years of coaching, he pioneered the crouch start and the single and double wing formation. He was raised in Springville, New York, Lodge number 351, and received his Scottish Rite degrees in 1911 in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He is also a York Rite Mason. We also have several notable explorers which we can talk about, and one of which I think would be Roald Amundsen, which was the first man to reach the South Pole. There was also Daniel Boone. Of course, we can't forget Daniel. And of course, the next one would be at the list, which I think was very important, was Admiral Richard E. Byrd. This famous navigator and aviator is responsible for drawing attention to the areas of the world that became focal points of scientific investigation. The transatlantic flyer pioneered technology beneficial to modern polar exploration. He flew over the North Pole on May 9th, 1926, and over the South Pole on November 27th, 1929, becoming the first man to fly over both poles. He was a member of Federal Lodge No. 1 in Washington, D.C., and Kane Lodge No. 454 in New York City. Byrd dropped Masonic flags over both poles. On the 1933 and 1935 Antarctic expedition, with 65 or 60 Masons that were out of the members of the Corps, were Freemasons themselves. And the explorers established the first Antarctic Lodge number 777 in February 5th, 1935. We can't forget Kit Carson, and also, let's say, Captains William Clark and Meriweather Lewis, who were U.S. frontiersmen themselves. And of course, it'd be nice to talk about them for a moment. These explorers combined their talents and successful journeys across the Rocky Mountains to the Columbia River to expand the Northwest America. At all times, Lewis and Clark worked as a team, each leading the expedition every other day. President Jefferson, who named Lewis to command the expedition, and Clark was to act as personal military director, brought the two together. Clark's knowledge of Indian affairs and character of Indians was an asset to the expedition. After the expedition, he was governor of Missouri Territory until he became superintendent of international or Indian affairs. Lewis was made governor of the Louisiana Territory. Brother Lewis was a member of St. Louis Lodge number 111 from Pennsylvania, and Brother Lewis was initiated in the Door to Virtue Lodge number 44 in Virginia. Quite a feat, as I would say.
Well, Paul, that is an extensive list. I'd like to thank you for the impressive list of men that we are proud to call brothers at this time. Remember, all men of good character and reputation can become Freemasons. All you have to do is ask. In Rhode Island, you can visit our website at www.rimasons.org for more information. Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Now, some may ask, what is Freemasonry? Now, you can listen to me or not, but I believe it's simple. Freemasonry is the very measure of a man. Look in every city and town in America, and you'll see, right out in the open, a building adorned with the square and compasses. Think for a moment. Freemasonry uses the oldest tools of antiquity, those tools of measurement used by the stonemasons, like the square and the compasses, to demonstrate and pass on the great truths and wisdom of the ages. We use tools of measurement because Freemasonry believes a man's greatness can be measured, not by his wealth or fame, but by his deeds, his character, his truth, his tolerance, his charity, his trust, his friendship, his love for his fellow creatures. It's been said that human happiness comes from the smallest of improvements. So he that can effect positive change, even by a simple kindness, adds wealth to the common stock of humanity. Freemasonry, therefore, believes greatness can be seen in a man's positive effect in the world, and that to do good is the best way to glorify God. Where the roots of Freemasonry began, no one can say for certain. They're hidden in antiquity, and perhaps that is best, at least for me. I became a Freemason in the Age of Enlightenment, a time much like you now live, a time of great light, where science had changed the way we live. I only wish that the moral sciences could do the same, because it seems to me that the great religions of the world all provide a moral compass to their faithful. And while each man must wrestle in private with his personal relationship with God, Freemasonry offers an ecumenical brotherhood, a fraternity composed of men of all religions, founded on the practice of the great moral and social virtues. And that's why you see on our symbol the letter G. It is there to remind us that God is part of each of our lives, and that the all-seeing eye of God will take the true measurement of our action. Freemasonry has three great lights by which we measure ourselves as men and masons: the square, the compasses, and the volume of sacred law we place them upon. That sacred book, one revered by the individual mason, is where we take our oaths, lay the foundation of our lives. The square, providing direction, helps us to square our actions by the square of virtue, because virtue is the stone used to build the man and his temple. Virtue is the cement that binds our relationships, and it is by our virtues that we are measured. The compasses are the tools of our conscience. We learn by the compasses to circumscribe our desires and keep our passions within due bounds with all mankind. The compasses create a circle, the precise circumference required to keep tradition and revelation, principle and creativity in balance. Now, as to the great secret of Freemasonry, it is actually found in the unconscious of each person. It is discovered by each individual for himself, Mason or not, as he comes to know himself and finds the road that takes him to his city. Because the real secret of Freemasonry is finding out who you are. The Mason square doth clear the air of folly and deception. The rule is straight, the angle clear, for greatness has direction. By the compasses abide the points within so far and wide. No pleasure sway nor profit tempt these bounds of Mason pride. Greatness, what your virtues are, good deeds practiced wide and far. And that secret of Masonic love is learning who you really are. For the great book knows what man can't hide, a life that's measured from inside. And on that book, that oath we took, and we will break it never, but stand by this, and this, and this, forever and forever.
Good morning. My name is Robert Palazzo. I am Assistant Grand Lecturer for the Grand Lodge of Freemasons for the state of Rhode Island and moderator for this program. I am pleased to have as my guest this morning Paul Kukowski, Director of Masonic Education. Good morning, Paul.
Good morning. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here and join you.
The Masonic fraternity is open to men of every race, creed, and culture. Men of every walk of life are members of our Masonic lodges. Over the centuries, men preeminent for their accomplishments in civil affairs, business, the military, and the arts have felt compelled to become Freemasons for the fellowship and the promotion of integrity and good citizenship that membership entails. Paul, we hear, read, and see a lot of Freemasons and the Declaration of Independence. Can you give us some insight into the Freemasons and the role of this historic event?
Yes, I can do that. Freemasons played a very prominent role. For example, there were 10 men of the 56 who signed the Declaration of Independence, and they were Freemasons, including a William Ellery from Rhode Island. There were 13 of the 39 signers of the U.S. Constitution were Freemasons. And of course, there were 14 presidents of the United States who were Freemasons. And of course, I can go through the list, of which was George Washington, who was the first, James Monroe, who was the fifth, and of course there was Andrew Jackson, who was the seventh president, and of course he was also a congressman and a senator and a judge for the Tennessee Supreme Court. And as a major general in the United States Army, he became a hero, if we all remember the War of 1812. He was elected president in 1828 and re-elected in 1832. He was elected Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Tennessee from 1882 to 1824. He was also a Royal Archmason, and he also was introduced, believe it or not, another Freemason, Marquis de Lafayette, who helped George Washington in the Revolutionary War, and introduced him to the Grand Lodge of Tennessee in 1825. That's pretty nice accomplishments.
Yes, it is.
And of course, if we go down the list, there was James K. Polk, there was James Buchanan, there was Andrew Johnson, there was James A. Garfield, there was Teddy Roosevelt, he was the fellow that carried the big stick, there was William H. Taft, Warren G. Harding, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, and of course there was a favorite of mine, which was Harry S. Truman. And he was the 32nd president of the United States, and he had to make some very critical decisions in history, including the dropping of the atomic bombs on Japan, the Fair Deal, the Truman Doctrine, and also the Marshall Plan, in which George Marshall was the Secretary of Defense at one time, and also was the inventor of the Marshall Plan. Truman was willing to accept responsibilities for all kinds of difficult decisions that made him a very controversial president. When he was 24 years old, he was initiated in Belton Lodge, number 450 in Grandview, Missouri, in 1908. In 1940, he ran for the U.S. Senate and was elected as U.S. Senator, and at that same time was Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Missouri, within weeks of each other of these prominent positions. Although in session with Congress, much of the time during that year was as Grand Master, but he always found time to be extremely active in Masonic responsibilities. He was truly a loyal member of the craft while he was serving as a candidate. As a matter of fact, if he went to a lodge meeting, you would find out that any Secret Service man who was not a Mason would not be allowed into the lodge room. Another interesting point about Harry S. Truman. In the 1948 election, both presidential and vice presidential candidates of the Democrat and Republican parties were all Freemasons. It was Harry Truman and a vice president candidate, Alvin W. Barkley. And for the Republican presidency, it was Thomas E. Dewey, and the Republican vice president, which was Earl Warren, who eventually became Supreme Court Justice. I dare say that it was probably one of the cleanest election campaigns that were ever fought. And of course, we go further, there was Lyndon Baines Johnson, who also was a Freemason. And of course, there was Gerald R. Ford.
There's an impressive list, to say the least. I also know there was a large number of important Rhode Islanders who were also Freemasons. Can you tell us who they were?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I mentioned William Ellery. And William Ellery was born in Newport in December 27th, 1727, where his father was a successful merchant and a politician. He attended Harvard University, graduating in 1749. He left later to engage in business in Newport and practiced law there in the 1770s. He took a seat in the Continental Congress in May of 1776 and was a very influential member to that particular Congress. In 1785, he was a very active supporter of Rufus King, who eventually became governor of Massachusetts, another Freemason, and in his effort to abolish slavery throughout the country. He served Congress until 1786, with the exceptions of the year of 1780 and 1782, and he was made a Mason in St. John's Lodge of Boston in October of 1748. There was Elisha Dyer, Jr., who was governor of the state from 1857 to 1859 and from 1859 to 1900. He was a member of St. John's Lodge in Providence. There was Samuel Eddy, who was Secretary of State from 1808 to 1818, Associate Justice of the Court from 1818 to 1825, and he also was a member of St. John's Lodge in Providence. There was Nehemiah R. Knight, who was governor from 1812 to 1821, a member of St. John's Lodge in Providence again. Recently, in a few generations now that we might be able to remember, is that there was Frank Leach, governor from 1969 to 1963, and a member of Redwood Lodge number 35. Julius Michelson was his Attorney General from 1975 to 1979, and he was also a member of Redwood Lodge. There's a Samuel M. Blanchard, who was Justice of the Supreme Court. There was Augustus O'Born, who was governor from 1883 to 1885. There was Herbert Ladd, governor in 1889 to 1890 and 1891 to 1892. Norman S. Case, governor from 1889 to 1891. And William Gregory, governor from 1901 to 1900. And Charles Kimball, which was governor again from 1902 to 1903. There were and are 9 senators in Rhode Island who are Masons, and also 14 representatives who have been Freemasons.
We also have many Supreme Court justices who are Freemasons. 40 of the 108 brothers of the fraternity, including 5 of which achieved the title of Chief Justice. Among those were Oliver Ellsworth, John Marshall, Frederick Vinson, Earl Warren, and William Howard Taft. Other prominent Freemasons of the court included Hugo L. Black, William O. Douglas, Potter C. Stewart, and finally Thurgood Marshall.
3,460 Congressional Medal of Honor winners. To date, 224 were awarded to Freemasons. And of course, one of the most famous ones, which I'll tell you about, is Audie Leon Murphy. He was the most decorated American soldier in World War II, a celebrated movie star for over 2 generations, and in the post-war era, appearing in 44 films. He was also found some success in the country music as a country music composer. Murphy began and became the most decorated U.S. soldier of the war during the 27 months in action in the European theater. He received the Medal of Honor, the U.S. military's highest award for valor, along with 32 additional U.S. and foreign medals and citations. His successful movie career included a movie called To Hell and Back, and which was based on his book. He is now buried in Arlington National Cemetery, and his gravesite is the 2nd most popular visited grave after that of John F. Kennedy. And of course, there were 11 Nobel Peace Prize winners. They were also Freemasons.
Although there are Freemasons in every walk of life, in the field of space exploration, Freemasonry counts 10 astronauts as its members.
Yes.
Beginning with Edwin E. Buzz Aldrin, Don F. Eisel, Virgil I. Gus Grissom, Edgar D. Marshall, Thomas P. Stafford, Gordon Cooper, John H. Glenn Jr., James Irwin, Walter M. Schirra, and finally Paul J. Weitz.
And a large number of successful businessmen have been Freemasons also. And of course, we'll start off with John Jacob Astor, which was a financier. And when John Jacob Astor left Germany in his late teens, he worked his way to London and eventually to America. And during his voyage across the Atlantic, he met a man who was a fur trader. That acquaintance convinced him that he should explore the fur trade, and with determination he amassed a fortune in the fur empire. At one time, he was considered the wealthiest man in America. Astor was master of Harlan Lodge No. 8 in New York City in 1788, and later served as the Grand Treasurer of the Grand Lodge of New York. Next I could show you is that of Larry Bell, the founder of Bell Aircraft Corporation. And then we have Walter P. Chrysler, U.S. car manufacturer. Chrysler Corporation still exists today. Then there was Herbert Henry Dow, the founder of Dow Chemical Corporation. And of course, Bob Evans, who founded the Bob Evans restaurant chains. Henry Ford was also on this list of U.S. car manufacturers. And of course, there was also King Gillette, the inventor of the safety razor and the founder of Gillette Company. At the age of 17, Gillette was an innovative traveling salesman who sought to improve his wares. He had earned 4 patents by the year of 1890. And when on the road in 1895, Gillette had a revelation to make a disposable safety razor. It took Gillette 6 years to find an engineer whose name was William Emery Nickerson, who could produce the blade, very specialized steel. In 1901, Gillette and Nickerson formed the American Safety Razor Company, which is now named Gillette. Despite his success, Gillette wrote an essay called The Human Drift, in which he characterized business practices of that particular day. They weren't very complimentary, of course. By 1910, the Gillette Company dominated the razor business, and Gillette became a millionaire. He was a member of Adelphoi Lodge in Quincy, Massachusetts. And of course, next we can find Sebastian Kresge, S.S. Kresge, the founder of Kmart. And there was also Roland H. Macy, the founder of Macy's. And of course, we can't forget one of the competition, which is James C. Penney, the founder of the J.C. Penney stores. And sometimes we should not forget the Colonel himself, Colonel Harlan Sanders, the founder of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Where would we be without chicken? And of course, there was Leland Stanford, railroad tycoon, and the namesake of Stanford University. And while we're talking about fried chicken, we also should mention Dave Thomas, the founder of Wendy's restaurants.
Paul, that's quite a long list. There are many musicians and entertainers that have enjoyed the benefits of Freemasonry. Could you talk a little about them?
Yeah, I think I could. They include Roy Acuff, the king of country western music, Louis Armstrong, jazz legend, William Count Basie, orchestra leader and composer, Johann Sebastian Bach, Irving Berlin,
3, 2.
Roy Clark again as a music legend, Nat King Cole, Irving Berlin, Edward Kennedy Duke Ellington, the jazz musician, and one of my favorites, Lionel Hampton, a jazz musician. There was Franz Joseph Haydn, Franz Liszt, Leopold Mozart, Wolfgang Amedeus Mozart's father, and of course, we all know Mozart. He was a child prodigy. He was only 6 when he began creating what amounted to more than 600 works during his lifetime, including several Masonic pieces. The Austrian child prodigy inherited his father's flair for music composition. He was initiated into a lodge in Austria in 1784, and he composed many Masonic works, including the opening ode, the closing ode, and the Masonic funeral music, the Magic Flute Opera, and more. He convinced his father to join the fraternity, and when his father received his 2nd degree, Wolfgang wrote the Fellowcraft's Journey to honor this occasion. His last Masonic work was written for the dedication of a Masonic temple in Vienna in 1791. And there was John Sibelius, Finnish composer. John Stafford Smith, the composer of the tune now used for the Star-Spangled Banner. How about John Philip Sousa, the March King? And Sir Arthur Sullivan, part of the famous duo of Gilbert and Sullivan. Giuseppe Verdi, the operatic composer, and Aida.
There were many entertainers of the stage and screen who are also brothers. I understand that you had a meeting with Ernest Borgnine?
Yes, we did, but I'll get to him in a moment. The interesting part of it is, let me give you a partial listing of some of the entertainers, and this is only a partial list. First of all, let's include William Bud Abbott, of the famous Bud Abbott and Lou Costello routine. Those were my favorite movies in the 40s and 50s. And of course, Bud Abbott was basically a Mason and a Shriner. And he began his career, believe it or not, as a cashier in the theater in 1916, and became famous for the founding of the comedy team. Anybody must remember who's on first, what's on second. He and Lou Costello sold $76 million in war bonds on a 31-day tour during World War II. And they both entertained in 300 Army and Navy camps. Tremendous patriot. And of course, we can go on a little further. Who can forget the voice of Bugs Bunny and others, which is Mel Blanc? Okay? And of course, we can't, besides Mel Blanc, we can't forget Walt Disney and Oliver Hardy. And of course, we also know about the next one, which is Harry Houdini. Harry Houdini began his performing magic at the age of 16 under the name Eric the Great. He later changed the name from Eric Weiss to Houdini, hoping to become like his mentor, the internationally famous magician Robert Houdin. In 1916, Houdini began a career in films and is best known for his great escapes. He executed the largest illusion to this day, making an elephant disappear. Houdini was a member of St. Cecil Lodge 568 in New York City. And of course, my favorite, everybody knows Ernest Borgnine, basically because of maybe McHale's Navy. And believe it or not, he's so genuine, you would almost think the McHale's Navy parts were basically natural for him. He was a screen and stage actor who in 1956 won an Oscar in his performance of the movie Marty. Borgnine served 10 years in the U.S. Navy during World War II, which probably gave him a lot of experience with McHale's Navy as playing those parts, but he studied acting under the GI Bill. He hit legitimate screen in the Barter Theater in Virginia and later in New York. He also played the lead in Born Yesterday, and that led him to Broadway to play with Helen Hayes in Mrs. McThing. He has also done some 200 radio and movie shows. In Hollywood, he got his big break when he was cast in the movie From Here to Eternity opposite Frank Sinatra, Deborah Kerr, and Burt Lancaster. He's a member of Abingdon Lodge in Virginia, number 48, and the Scottish Rite Valley of Los Angeles in California. He also received his 33rd degree of Scottish Rite Masonry from the Southern Jurisdiction in 1983. And of course, we have Clark Gable. We can't forget Clark Gable and Gone with the Wind and so many of those good movies. And Al Jolson. And again, how about Roy Rogers? Roy Rogers left home for California in a pickup truck with his father, hoping to seek fortune and fame. His film debut was Under the Western Stars, and Rogers soon became a movie, television, and radio star, riding onto the sets and into the hearts of many grown-ups and children, like me at that time, with his golden Charger Trigger. He was a member of the Hollywood Lodge 355, and belonged to the Scottish Rite Valley in Los Angeles, and was a member of the Al-Makala Shrine Temple. You should also not forget maybe a famous one, which was Red Skelton. And while we all remember him for his shows as clowns, we also should understand that he wrote a very living understanding in one of his shows on the explanation of the Pledge of Allegiance of the flag. He was a natural clown, and I think anybody that remembers his TV programs would also remember him as such, ad-libbing all the way. And also, what people don't know is that he is a famous painter of clowns. Lastly, I'd like to bring to mind Danny Thomas, who was the founder of the St. Jude's Hospitals for Children. Quite an accomplishment from a Freemason.
Many of today's sports stars and sports stars in the past have been members of our fraternity. The list includes William Jack Dempsey, boxer, Russell Ross Francis, New England Patriot and San Francisco 49er, John Hanna, famous lineman from the New England Patriots, Sam Hornish, auto racer, and founder and winner of the Indianapolis 500, Tim Horton, ice hockey player, and founder of the national chain of donut shops.
Yep.
Boxer Joe Louis was among them, and James Naismith, inventor of U.S. basketball. My personal favorite, Arnold Palmer, golfer.
Of course. He was born in 1929, and Arnold Palmer is many things to many people, some of which is the world-famous golfer. He was a business executive, advertising spokesman, and
You're going to come in with us. And then, yeah. No, actually, you'll be in front.
So today we are here to perform the prologue, which precedes the installation of a semi-public installation of officers at a Blue Lodge in the state of Rhode Island. Today with me, I have Brother William F. Stockwell as chaplain, and Worshipful Brother John W. Kent as marshal. Since no Masonic lodge or gathering of Freemasons should ever begin without the benefit of prayer, Brother Chaplain, you will lead us in opening prayer. Brother Marshal, you will escort the chaplain to the altar.
Let us pray. O heavenly Lord, the Father of lights, from whom cometh every good and perfect gift, so lighten our hearts and minds that we may show forth thy glory, not only with our lips, but in our lives. Lord, thank you for blessing us with this day of fellowship here at Friendship Lodge. As preparations are made for the installation of our officers, both elected and appointed, we pray in your name for our officers, our members, and all of our families, that they will continue to be healthy and happy as they go forth in our community as leaders to promote faith and hope through the works of charity. Thank you for blessing us with the company of our Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master Gil Fons and his installation team. We are honored that they are here to preside over the work today. For all of this, Lord, we give thanks and praise in thy heavenly name, forever and ever. Amen.
So it be. Today we're here to install the officers of Friendship Lodge. Before we meet the installing suite and continue with the installation, I would call to your attention the following brief statement of our institution. No living person remembers when Masonry began. Many of the symbols of our organization can be traced back to the very childhood of civilization, back to when the written word was rare, if it existed at all. During the Middle Ages and the rise of Gothic architecture, can be found two distinct classes of masons. The guild masons, who like the guild carpenters and weavers and merchants were local in character and strictly regulated by law. And the Freemasons, who would travel from city to city as their services were needed to design and erect marvelous buildings and cathedrals, many of which still stand today, inimitable in beauty. These operative Freemasons were the artists, the leaders, the teachers, the mathematicians, and the poets of their time. At first, only craftsmen were admitted, but with the Reformation, great buildings were no longer being erected, and the craft came to a standstill. To preserve their institution, learned men continued to meet and take in others as speculative masons. These were outstanding men in their communities. From this has arisen the present-day ancient and honorable society of free and accepted masons, men who now build structures in the hearts of mankind. Many of the leaders of the world have been and are Freemasons. Freemasons have fought and died for their country and the honor of their craft. And why? Because Freemasonry teaches us charity and benevolence, to respect the ties of blood and friendship, to adopt the principles and revere the ordinances of religion, to assist the feeble, guide the blind, raise up the downtrodden, to shelter the orphaned, to guard the altar, to promote learning, support the government, inculcate morality, love man, fear God, and have a true faith in God and immortality. Thus fortified, a Freemason could face the future with confidence, walking uprightly in his several stations before God and man. The officers of this lodge have a strong belief in friendship, morality, brotherly love, and a true faith in God and in immortality. Brother Marshall. You will escort the installing suite into the lodge room.
Brother Gilbert J. Fonts, Jr., Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master for the Northern Masonic District.
Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master, welcome to Friendship Lodge.
Thank you, Right Worshipful Grace. It's indeed a pleasure to be here this morning. The purpose of installing the offices of Friendship Lodge. I would like to introduce my suite. As Assistant Grand Lecturer, I have Carlo Esquito. Associate Grand Chaplain, Larry Fino. And Grand Master of Ceremonies, Jason M. Nystrom. And if you will allow me to greet you on the level, I will meet you in the east.
Please. Right Worshipful, I present to you the gavel of Friendship Lodge to continue with the work of the day.
Thank you very much, Right Worshipful. Fantastic job.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, brethren. You've been informed that I am here by order of the most worshipful Grand Master of Masons for the state of Rhode Island, Brother Gary S. Kaufman, to superintend your elections and to install your officers. The elections have been complete, and we are now going to proceed with the election of officers. We are also welcoming in via virtual the public, so welcome family and friends. With that, we have a lot of work to do, so we will get right into it. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies.
Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master.
You will present the Master-elect before the East.
Right Worshipful, present to you Brother Zachary E. LeBlanc, who has been elected Master of this lodge and is now ready to be installed. I find him to be of good morals, true and trusty, and a lover of the whole craft, wherever so dispersed around the face of the earth. And I doubt not that he will perform his duties with fidelity.
Thank you. And Brother Yule, about face. Brethren, family and friends, you hold before you him who has been elected master of this lodge for the ensuing year. We do find him to be true and trusty, and a lover of the whole craft, and we doubt not that he will perform his duty. And Brother Yule, about face. Previous to your investiture, it is necessary that you signify your assent to those ancient charges and regulations which point out the duty of a master of a lodge. You agree to be a good man and true, and strictly obey the moral law. You agree to be a peaceable subject and to cheerfully conform to the laws of the country in which you live. You promise not to be concerned in plots and conspiracies against government, but patiently to submit to the decisions of the Supreme Legislature. You agree to pay a proper respect to the civil magistrate, to work diligently, live credibly, and act honorably by all men. You agree to hold in veneration the original rulers and patrons of the Order of Freemasonry and their successors, supreme and subordinate, according to their stations, and to submit to the awards and resolutions of your brethren when convened, in every case consistent with the constitution of the craft. You agree to avoid private piques and quarrels, to guard against intemperance and excess. You agree to be cautious in carriage and behavior, courteous to your brethren, and faithful to your lodge. You promise to respect genuine brethren and to discountenance impostors and all dissenters from the original plan of Freemasonry. You agree to cultivate the social, you agree to promote the general good of society, to cultivate the social virtues, and to propagate a knowledge of the arts. You promise to pay homage to the Grand Master for the time being, and his regular officers when duly installed, and strictly conform to every edict of the Grand Lodge or General Assembly of Freemasons that is not subversive to the principles and groundwork of Freemasonry. You admit that it is not in the power of any man or body of men to make innovations in the body of Freemasonry. You promise a regular attendance on the communications and committees of the Grand Lodge on receiving proper notice, and to pay attention to all of the duties of Freemasonry on convenient occasions. You admit that no new lodge shall be formed without permission of the Grand Lodge, and that no countenance be given to any irregular lodge or person clandestinely initiated therein, being contrary to the ancient charges of the craft. You admit that no person can be admitted a member of any lodge or irregular lodge without previous investigation and due notice. You admit that no new visitors shall be received into your lodge until strict examination and producing proper vouchers of having been initiated into a regular lodge. These are the charges and regulations of free and accepted Masons. Do you submit to these charges and promise to support these regulations as masters have done in all ages before you?
I do.
Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the Master-elect to the altar.
Supreme Grand Master, and whose creative being all things were made, we the frail creatures of thy divine providence humbly implore thee to pour down upon this convocation assembled in thy holy name the continual dew of thy blessing. We especially beseech thee to impart your wisdom upon this, thy servant who offers himself a candidate to serve as master of Friendship Lodge, enduing him with the wisdom that only comes from the divine writings in front of us. Strengthen the brothers of this lodge through the strength of the senior warden and the other officers, that they may follow the leadership that thy servant will lead this lodge to do. May they together glorify your presence throughout this community, wherever so dispersed. We ask these things in thy holy name.
So mote it be. My brother, you will say I, call your name in full, and repeat after me.
I, Zachary Peter LeBlanc,
of my own free will and accord,
of my own free will and accord,
in the presence of Almighty God,
in the presence of Almighty God,
and this worshipful lodge,
and this worshipful lodge,
do hereby and hereon
do hereby and hereon
solemnly and sincerely
solemnly and sincerely
promise and swear
promise and swear
that I will well and truly execute
that I will well and truly execute
the office of Master of this lodge
the office of Master of this lodge
for the ensuing year
for the ensuing year
and until my successor
and until my successor
shall be lawfully installed.
shall be lawfully installed.
So help me God,
So help me God,
and keep me steadfast
and keep me steadfast
in the due performance of the same.
in the due performance of the same.
As a further token of your sincerity, you will kiss the holy writings which lie open before you. My brother, in consequence of your cheerful conformity to the charges and regulations, you are now to be installed master of this lodge, in full confidence of your care, skill, and capacity to govern the same. I now invest you with the jewel of your office and present to you the implements of your profession. The Holy Writings, the great light of Freemasonry, will guide you to all truth, direct your path to the temple of happiness, and point out to you the whole duty of man. The square teaches us to regulate our actions by rule and line, and to harmonize our conduct by the principles of morality and virtue. The compasses teach us to limit our desires at every station, that rising to eminence by merit, we may live respected and die regretted. The rule directs that we should punctually observe our duty, press forward in the path of virtue, neither inclining to the right nor to the left, in all our actions having eternity in view. The line teaches the criterion of moral rectitude, to avoid dissimulation in conversation and action, and direct our steps to the path which leads to immortality. The Book of Constitutions. The Book of Constitutions you ought to search at all times, cause it diligently to be read in your lodge, that none may pretend ignorance to the excellent precepts it enjoins. The Charter. Here you go, Jay. Under which your lodge is convened, is now entrusted to your care. This you will keep and preserve the same, and you will pass on to your successor. Lastly, you receive in charge the bylaws of your lodge. And you are not to suspend the same, except in the case of an extreme necessity, of which you will be answerable to the Grand Master. Worshipful Master, I now invite you to the east for you to announce your appointments. You're going to be right off to the left. Right there. You're going to announce your appointments.
Oh, yes, of course. The appointed officers for this upcoming year, as Senior Deacon, Brother Keith Doucette, as Brother Junior Deacon, Brother Kevin Kelly, Senior Steward, Brother Thomas Kelly, Junior Steward, Brother Keith Boudreau, Chaplain, Brother William Stockwell, Sentinel, Brother Jared Kelly, Tyler, Brother Samuel Owen Smith, Marshal, Worshipful Robert J. Young,
Music Director, Right Worshipful Larry Thienel, Ritual Advisor, Worshipful Trevor Humphrey.
Thank you, Worshipful Master. You can sit down. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies.
Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master.
You will cause the officers to stand at attention.
The officers elected and appointed will stand.
My brothers, do you each accept the office for which you have been chosen?
I do.
Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the officers to the altar. Go ahead. My brothers, you will each say I, call your name in full as I prompt you, and then repeat after me. I.
Dennis Russell McSween. I, Samuel Owen Smith. I, Kevin Jacob.
I, Keith Robert Gissett.
I, Mark Stephen Morgenstern.
I, Michael John Ricci.
I, William Frank Stockwell.
I, Thomas Kelly Jr.
I, Jared Thomas Kelly.
I, Keith Walter Boudreau.
I, John Windsor Bonds.
I, Robert J. Young. I, Larry John Tina.
Of my own free will and accord.
Of my own free will and accord.
In the presence of Almighty God.
In the presence of Almighty God.
And this worshipful lodge.
And this worshipful lodge.
Do hereby and hereon.
Do hereby and hereon.
Solemnly and sincerely.
Solemnly and sincerely.
Promise and swear.
Promise and swear.
That I will well and truly execute.
That I will well and truly execute.
The office to which I have been chosen.
The office to which I have been chosen.
In this lodge.
In this lodge.
For the ensuing year.
For the ensuing year.
And until my successor.
And until my successor.
Shall be lawfully installed.
Shall be lawfully installed.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And keep me steadfast.
And keep me steadfast.
In the due performance of the same.
In the due performance of the same.
So help me God.
So help me God.
As a further token of your sincerity, the senior warden will kiss the holy writings which lie open before him. My brothers, do you each concur with this salutation? I do.
The officers, with the exception of the senior warden-elect, will return to your stations.
You doing all right?
My worshipful, present to you Brother Mark S. Morgenstern, who has been elected senior warden of this lodge and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Morgenstern, you have been elected senior warden of this lodge, and you are now invested with the ensign of your office. The level demonstrates that we are descended of the same stock, partake of the same nature, and share the same hope. And though distinctions among men are necessary to preserve subordination, yet no eminence of station should make us forget that we are brethren. For he who is placed on the lowest spoke of fortune's wheel may be entitled to our regard. Because a time will come, and the wisest know not how soon, when all distinctions but that of goodness shall cease, and death, the grand leveler of human existence, will reduce us to the same state. Your regular attendance on our stated meetings is essentially necessary. In the absence of the master, you are to govern this lodge. In his presence, you are to assist him in the government of it. I firmly rely on your knowledge of Freemasonry and attachment to the lodge for the faithful discharge of the duties of this important trust. Present you the Constitution, General Regulations, Standing Orders, and decisions of the Grand Lodge, and request that you familiarize yourself with its important context. For in the period of one short year, you may be elected master of this lodge. Look well to the west.
My worshipful, present to you Brother Dennis McSweeney, who has been elected junior warden of this lodge and is now ready to be installed.
Brother McSweeney, you have been elected junior warden of this lodge, and you are now invested with the badge of your office. The plumb admonishes us to walk uprightly at our several stations, to hold the scales of justice at equal poise, and to observe the just medium between intemperance and pleasure. To you, with such assistance as may be necessary, is entrusted the reception of candidates and the examination of visitors. To you also is committed the craft during the hours of refreshment. It is therefore indispensably necessary that you are not only temperate and discreet in the indulgences of your own inclinations, but carefully observe that none of the craft be suffered to convert the means of refreshment into intemperance or excess. Your regular attendance on our stated meetings is particularly requested, and I have no doubt that you will give to your duties all that study its importance demands. I present you the Constitution, General Regulations, Standing Orders, and decisions of the Grand Lodge, as well as the Master's Book. and request that you familiarize yourself with its important context. For in the period of 2 short years, you may be elected master of this lodge. Look well to the south.
Worshipful, I present to you Brother John W. Barnes, who has been elected treasurer of this lodge and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Barnes, you have been elected treasurer of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. It is your duty to receive all monies from the hands of the secretary, keep a just and lawful account of the same, and pay them out at the worshipful master's will and pleasure with consent of the lodge. I firmly rely on, I trust that your knowledge of Freemasonry will induce you to the proper disposal of your duties. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the treasurer to his station.
Worshipful, I present to you Brother Michael Calici, who's been elected secretary of this lodge and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Calici, you have been elected secretary of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. It is your duty to observe the worshipful master's will and pleasure, to record the proceedings of the lodge, and to pay all monies into the hands of the treasurer. Your good inclination of Freemasonry and this lodge, I hope, will induce you to perform with fidelity the trust reposed in you. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the secretary to his station.
Who's been appointed chaplain of this lodge and is now ready to be installed.
Thank you. Brother Stockwell, you have been appointed chaplain of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. It seems fitting that the emblem of the sacred volumes, which is the great light of Freemasonry, should be the jewel of your office. For we are sure that in ministering at the Masonic altar, the services which you perform will lose nothing of their influence, because they are practiced in that spirit of universal tolerance, which distinguishes our institutions. The doctrines of morality and virtue will form the appropriate lessons you are expected to communicate to your brethren, both in and out of the lodge. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the chaplain to his station.
Right Worshipful, present to you brothers Keith Doucette and Kevin Kelly, who have been appointed senior and junior deacons of this lodge and are now ready to be installed.
My brothers, you have been appointed deacons of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewels of your office. It is your province to tend to the master and wardens and act as their proxies in the active duties of the lodge, such as the reception of candidates into the different degrees of Freemasonry and the reception and accommodation of visitors, and in the immediate practice of our rites. These rods, as badges of your office, are now entrusted to your care, not doubting your vigilance and attention. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the deacons to their stations.
Brothers, great face. Right Worshipful, I present to you brothers Thomas Kelly and Keith Beaudreau, who have been appointed senior and junior stewards of this lodge and are now ready to be installed.
My brothers, you have been appointed stewards of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewels of your office. It is your duty to assist in the collection of dues and subscriptions, to keep an account of the lodge expenses, and to see that the tables are properly furnished at refreshment and that every brother is suitably provided for, and to assist the deacons and other officers with their respective duties. Your regular and early attendance will be the best proof of your zeal and attachment to the lodge. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the stewards to their station.
Right Worshipful, present to you Brother Robert J. Young, who's been appointed Marshal of this lodge, who's now ready to be installed.
Brother Young, you have been appointed Marshal of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. The duties of your office require energy, activity, and quickness of perception. The good order so necessary in all processions of the lodge will depend upon your care, skill, and assiduity. And I doubt not that you will give to your duties all that study and attention its importance demands. Worshipful Grand Master Ceremonies, you will conduct the Marshal to his station.
Right Worshipful, present to you Brother Jared Kelly, who's been appointed Sentinel of this lodge, and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Kelly, you are appointed Sentinel of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. Your station is near the door, whence you receive all reports from the treasurer, from the Tyler, and announce to the Worshipful Master those desiring admission into the lodge. You will see that all who enter are properly clothed, and be careful to use a sound discretion not to disturb the business of the lodge or interfere with the ceremonies of the lodge. Worshipful Grand Master Ceremonies, you will conduct the Sentinel to his station.
Right Worshipful, present to you Brother Larry Thienel, who has been appointed Musical Director of this lodge, and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Right Worshipful Thienel, you have been appointed Musical Director of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel of your office. Under the direction of the Worshipful Master, you are to perform the musical services of this lodge, which when properly rendered are not the least important feature of our ceremonies. For by the powerful charms of music, the most discordant passions may be harmonized and brought into perfect unison. Worshipful Grand Master Ceremonies, you will conduct the musical director to his station.
Right Worshipful, present to you Brother Samuel O. Smith, who's been appointed Tyler of this lodge, and is now ready to be installed.
Brother Smith, you have been appointed Tyler of this lodge, and you are now invested with the jewel and the implement of your office. As the first application from visitors is generally made to the Tyler at the door, your station will often present you with the observation of strangers. It is therefore necessary that he who sustains the office with which you are entrusted should be a man of good morals, strict discipline, temperate, affable, and discreet. I trust that your regard for the honor and reputation of our institution will induce you to perform with fidelity the trust reposed in you. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will conduct the Tyler to his station. Ready? There you go. Well, worshipful master, please stand for a minute. Come right over here. Worshipful master, I present you the gavel of Friendship Lodge, and I seat you in this chair, once occupied by the wisest of men. May the Supreme Grand Master bless and keep you. May a double portion of his spirit descend upon you. The gavel in your hand is the emblem of your authority. With one blow, you call up the junior deacon. With two blows, you call up the remaining officers. And with three blows, you call up the entire lodge. Worshipful Master, behold your brethren. Brethren, behold your master, and greet him with a hearty round of applause. And with one blow, you seat the lodge. Worshipful Master, the craft having committed to your care, the superintendence and government of this lodge, you cannot be insensible of the obligation which devolve on you, nor of the responsibilities for the faithful discharge of the important duties annexed to your appointment. The honor, reputation, and usefulness of your lodge will materially depend upon the care and assiduity with which you manage its concerns. And while the happiness of its members will generally be in proportion to the zeal and ability with which you propagate the principles of our institution. For a pattern of imitation, consider the great luminary of nature, which, rising in the east, regularly diffuses light and luster to all within its circle. In like manner, it is your province to spread and communicate light and instruction to the brethren of your lodge. Forcibly impress upon them the dignity and high importance of Freemasonry. Charge them to practice out of the lodge those duties that they are taught in it, and by amiable, discreet, and virtuous conduct to convince mankind the goodness of our institution, so that when anyone is said to be a member of it, the world may know that he is whom the burdened heart may pour out its sorrow, to whom distress prefer its suit, whose hand is guided by justice and heart expanded by benevolence. In short, by strict observance to the bylaws of your lodge, the Constitution of Freemasonry, and above all, the holy writings which are given to you as a rule and guide to your faith, you will be enabled to equip yourself with honor and reputation, and lay up a crown of rejoicing, which shall continue when time shall be no more. Brethren, such is the nature of our Constitution, that some of necessity must rule and teach, so others must of course learn to submit and obey. Humility in both is an essential duty. The officers who are chosen to govern your lodge are sufficiently conversant with the rules of propriety and the laws of the craft to avoid exceeding the powers with which they are entrusted. And you, are of too generous a disposition to envy that preferment. I therefore trust that you have but one aim: to please each other, and to unite in the grand design of being happy and communicating happiness. And finally, my brethren, as this association has been formed and perfected in so much unanimity and concord in which we greatly rejoice, so may it long continue. May you long enjoy every satisfaction and delight which disinterested friendships can afford. May kindness and brotherly affection distinguish your conduct as men and as Freemasons. Within your peaceful walls, may your children's children celebrate with joy and gratitude the transaction of this auspicious solemnity. And may the tenets of our profession be transmitted through your lodge, pure and unimpaired, from generation to generation. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies,
Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master.
you will make the official proclamation.
In the name of the Grand Lodge, the most ancient and honorable society of free and accepted Masons for the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, and by order of Brother Gilbert J. Fonts, Jr., the Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master for the Northern Masonic District, I proclaim the officers of Friendship Lodge No. 7 duly elected, appointed, obligated, and installed. I make this proclamation once, twice, thrice. In the south, in the west, and in the east.
Worshipful Master, the craft is in your care.
First thing I'd like to do is, for the Sentinel, would you mind asking the Tyler from within? Thank you.
Anything you want.
I'd like to start off by saying thank you to all of you for electing me as your worshipful master for this year. I look forward to assisting all of you and this lodge in making it a great year with everybody together's help. I'm lucky to have a great line of officers that are eager and capable. Their work can be seen throughout this entire lodge again and again. And without the help from the line officers, past masters, and brothers all, we together will have a great year. Thank you. Well, we do have some gifts to present Worshipful Young. So I guess I'll gavel down and...
Get your marshals do it.
Oh, of course. We're the marshal. Would you, I know where they all are, would you escort Worshipful Master, past Worshipful Master, old habits. I will meet you on a level. A few things to present you. First, this this, but it's something that I think would pique your interest. Worst will Humphrey did a really good job wrapping it up. They are prints of the original tattoo guns.
Oh, wow.
I didn't know it was original rendered paper. Also, this is from all of us. With all the time on the golf course and camping, it'd be nice to have a smoke with you. So it's a travel. Yeah. It leads to 15 count. They're all layered up, and with the help from Brother Lovett, we here filled it up for you.
Thank you, brothers. I appreciate it very, very, very much. I've also got some gifts for my
So, Brother Doucette. No. Still not done. Brother Doucette has turned that for you. Handmade.
for you over there.
Beautiful. Then along, last but not least, past masters here.
Wow, look
Which
at
I
that.
think is more fitting favorite for you.
Wow. That is awesome. Wow, that is awesome.
And your past master's jewel. Which I believe for the Morgenstern put that together for you.
Thank you, brothers, very, very much. This is about your family. It is.
It's wonderful worship.
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right.
I've got some gifts from my office. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. How do you like that? It's right
You can wait while we...
I wanted to present a few gentlemen that have done a few things this year. First off, I would like to present the Earnest Service Award to Secretary Rushful Mike Luigi for all the hard work that he has helped me through in my year. COVID, there was a lot of up in the air stuff at the last minute, and without his support, without his hard work, I would have never been able to do half the things I got done this year. And I really leaned on him, and I really appreciate his help. And I think anybody that's sad in the East that has a secretary that does the work they do, they're the backbone. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Service Award, which is something we just started a few years back. It's kind of a service award that after Bob was gone, his wife had donated a watch. We didn't know what to do with it, so we turned it into an award. It's a service award for someone that's just kind of stood out among our brothers, who's always active, always up front, looking for something to do, always offering his time. Bro, I feel like you've been a very, very contributing asset this year that you've done. You're always ready and willing to help. It doesn't go unrecognized, my friend. Thank you guys much. Of course, I've got gift bags for my line officers. So don't let them stick hands over it, but thank you for this.
When you're done. We're probably going to grab him before he goes to
Sorry.
the house. We'll give
What's
him a
happening?
certificate.
I don't want to shut anybody.
Your past treasurer.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that very, very much.
Are you complete? Okay, wrap everybody up and hand me the bananas.
Right, Worshipful District Deputy, I now return the gavel to you to conduct the finishing business of the annual.
Thank you very much, Worshipful Master. We'll switch seats here. I will use it to seat the brethren. And I would like to bring the greetings of the Grand Lodge of the most ancient and honorable society of free and accepted Masons for the state of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, and those of our most worshipful Grand Master, Gary S. Kaufman. My own warm fraternal greetings, and those of my worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, Jason Monroe Nystrom. Well, greetings again, brethren. What a day this has been. Fantastic. I really enjoyed this day, and I wish the lodge very good luck. I only have I have one bit of business to conduct, but before, wait a minute, the Grand Lodge officers. Worshipful Master, would you like to announce the Grand Lodge officers?
It would be my pleasure.
You'll do. Yeah, I follow that line now. We don't have any visitors, so
Nope.
so they're all
Stop.
right there.
Page. All right. Worshipful Grandmaster of Ceremonies, John W. Kent III of the Central District.
Thank you for the recognition, Worshipful Master. Congratulations to you and your line officers. Right, Worshipful, excellent work.
Thank you.
Very nice. Brother Nystrom, great job. Thank you for the recognition.
Worshipful Grandmaster of Ceremonies, Jason M. Nordstrom of the Northern District.
Thank you for the recognition, Worshipful Master. Congratulations on your ascension to the Oriental Chair. Best of luck this year to you and your officers. You have a fantastic lodge, and I know you'll be able to tackle and meet anything that you put your minds to.
Worshipful Assistant Grand Lecturer, Carlo Acquisto.
Thank you for the recognition, Worshipful. I want to say congratulations on being appointed and elected here at Worshipful Friendship Lodge. I think 2015, I asked you to be a line officer, and you accepted, and I think you would do an excellent job. Excellent job on the installation, right, Worshipful, and Grandmaster Ceremonies, Jason.
Now we're getting some more colors there. Okay. Right Worshipful Associate Grand Chaplain Emeritus, Larry J. Thienel.
Thank you for the recognition, Worshipful Master. Congratulations on your ascent to your chair of the East. Anytime you need some joyful noise within these walls, just let me know.
Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master of the Central District, Eric E. Grist.
Thank you for recognition, Worshipful Master. It's great to see you in the East, and Right Worshipful, fantastic job.
And Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master of the Northern District and past Grand Marshal 2017, Gilbert J. Fox, Jr.
Thank you very much, Worshipful Master. It has been my honor and pleasure to be here today and install you and the officers of your lodge. I did want to kind of echo our junior past master, Young, who gave an award to Brother Kalichi. I got to say, as a secretary, I said this before, I'm going to say it again. You don't know how blessed you are as a lodge to have such a great secretary. Through this whole COVID thing, this lodge, your lodge, was the first lodge to even try to attempt to do the mail-in ballots. And brother, you made it so easy for me and for everybody, and I really, really appreciate that. This is just a great lodge. So, Worshipful Master, Jay and I are here for you. And if you need anything, we're here. We really love this lodge. I did speak of the sentiments that I have for this lodge at the rehearsal. I won't go into that any further, but thank you.
Did forget one name.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes, of course.
I forgot one name in the recognition list of Grand Lodge officers. Most Worshipful Past Grand Master, 1993, Stephen E. Mitchell. My apologies.
Thank you very much, Worshipful Master. It's a delight to see you up there, and all of us will be supporting you 100% this year to be successful. But
Thank you. Now.
Okay. So with that done, we've got a little bit out of order, but now we're back in. So with that done, I have one other official point of business. Worshipful Grandmaster of Ceremonies.
Right, Worshipful.
Will you present the Junior Past Master of Friendship Lodge before the East? My brother, you'll about face. So it is the district deputy's absolute honor and pleasure to be able to present the outgoing master with his master's certificate. Once you're in that master's position, you never really know what you're capable of doing until you're kind of done with it. And that'll even probably come in, but you've done a wonderful job this year throughout all of everything. You've kept us in communications with the weekly addresses, which were very helpful to me as a district deputy to know definitely what's going on inside your lodge. I do hope that more lodges adopt that. But just even through the COVID, you did a wonderful job. I'd like to read this certificate, if I may, in its entirety. This says, Master's Certificate. The Grand Lodge of the Most Ancient Honorable Society of Free and Accepted Masons for the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations, to all to whom these presents may come, greetings. Be it known that whereas Robert J. Young was installed Worshipful Master of Friendship Lodge No. 7, FNAM, on the 14th day of September 2019, and has served this lodge during this term of office to advance the interests of Masonry in general and his lodge in particular. And whereas it is fitting that the Grand Lodge of Rhode Island should recognize a faithful officer who has given his responsibilities the best that lies within his power. And therefore, by these presents, the Grand Lodge hereby acknowledges the completion of his term of office and extends its felicitations to him and to his lodge for the accomplishments attained in performing the duties of Worshipful Master. This is given under the seal of the Grand Lodge of the Most Ancient and Honorable Society of Free and Accepted Masons for the State of Rhode Island and Providence Plantations on this day, 26th day of September, 6020 AL, 2020 AD, signed Robert P. Reed, Grand Secretary. Attest Robert P. Reed, Secretary. Grand Secretary, and signed Gary S. Kaufman, Grand Master. Worshipful Master, I present this to you, and congratulations to you. Read that. We're going to go once around the lodge. It was my pleasure. This is a pleasure to be there. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to you. Okay, with that, is there anything else to be brought before the lodge? Anything else to be brought before the lodge? Brother Secretary, are your minutes ready? You will read them at your next communication or the next annual communication. Thank you. Okay, so the Grand Master has afforded district deputies the ability to close in a public forum. And because we are part of the virtual, we will do that.
Excuse me, Right Worshipful.
Yes.
I don't know if you realize the Grand Master has communicated to me by electronics a message for the Brethren of Friendship Lodge and those who are viewing. Would you like me to play it for everyone?
Would you please play it? I was wondering if that was to happen. The Grand Master I didn't know if it was...
It arrived just before we went on.
Oh, excellent, excellent. If you please, if you don't mind, we have a very special message. The Grand Master did reach out to me, I should say the Grand Marshal, did reach out to me with a very special message from our Grand Master to the Brethren of Friendship Lodge. Now, because of the, I didn't know if it could work via the avenue or whatever that we took, but thank you, if you don't mind.
The viewers will see and hear it. We'll kind of hear it here. There's no display for them to see.
Thank you very much. And it was going, I mean, the Grand Marshal had asked all of the officers' names. The Grand Master absolutely sends his best wishes to all of the officers of Friendship Lodge. He wanted to do that personally today, but he is attending the Master Mason's degree at the Grand Lodge today. Otherwise, he would have been here, I'm sure. Okay, so with that, is there any other additional business to be brought before the lodge? As I mentioned earlier, the Grand Master has allowed district deputies to close in a public forum, and we will take advantage of that. So with nothing said, we will close. Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies.
Right Worshipful District Deputy Grand Master.
You will escort the chaplain to the Associate Grand Chaplain to the altar for closing prayer.
Free Grand Master, we give you the thanks for your presence during the installation of these officers. May you bless them in this coming year, that together Friendship Lodge may bless the community within which they preside. We ask that you be with the brethren of this lodge that were not able to attend this meeting today. May they know that your loving hand is always close beside them. We ask all these things in thy holy name. Amen.
So mote it be. For the Senior Warden, how should Masons meet? And act, Brother Junior Warden. And part upon the square. So may we ever meet, act, and part, my brothers. May the blessings of heaven rest upon us and all regular Masons. May brotherly love prevail, and every moral and social virtue cement us. Amen?
So will it be.
Worshipful Grand Master of Ceremonies, you will attend to the altar. And now declare this semi-annual Communication of Friendship Lodge closed in public forum. Thank you all for coming. Worshipful Master, congratulations. Excellent, excellent, excellent. It was fun, right? We had a lot of fun.
Good morning, brethren of Friendship Lodge. What a wonderful morning this has been. I know that Melvin and I could not be with you today. I felt that